Hey, it's Macabre Derek here again, and we're going to part two of creating your own city for Vampire the Masquerade or Vampire Requiem. Right now, the two systems may have different mechanics, but these ideas so far have not diverged. They have not split. The concepts still remain very much the same. And today we are going to be talking about the Prince. So, what is the Prince? A lot of people make this mistake of thinking that the prince is just the guy in charge. You know, he's got the most power, and so he is trying to run tyrannical on every single person underneath him. He is the one who creates his city. He is the be all and end all. Sadly, for most princes, this is not true. It becomes very, very difficult to maintain a city on your own. This is one of the reasons why it is that kindred are very, very selective in their embraces. The prince has the authority, ironically given to him by the kindred of the city, to say who can embrace and who can't. Now, this goes back to population mechanics that I was earlier discussing in the first video. So, what does a prince do? A prince tries to end up maintaining a position of power while trying not to let his city boil over. Or hers, doesn't really matter. Gotta remember, prince is a unisex title. It does not really care which gender you end up falling in. What it does care about is authority. It's one of the reasons why Ventrue are very frequently princes. Ventrue have this ability to command a certain degree of respect. They have the ability to look at a city in these modern nights and figure out where are the real power structures, the ones that almost everybody needs, and then finds a way to adapt them, to change them. So, why does he do this? Well, first of all, an entire city qualifies as a prince's domain. While he may give small pockets to individuals who've curried favor with him and who have supported him, the prince at the end is trying to make sure that this bunch of predators that he has bested, that he has shown his ability to command power and build a stable kindred society, doesn't boil over, break the masquerade, doesn't end up with kindred getting killed left, right, and center, doesn't end up creating a bunch of monsters more so than they are, and tries to end up making sure that everything runs smoothly, that nothing moves too fast. He needs to slow this city down to make sure that society doesn't outpace him too much. Now, he has plenty of aides for this. He has plenty of people to end up making sure he keeps up the speed. A good prince observes kindred in their environment and knows how to use that in some way, shape, or form. However, the type of prince you have very much changes the nature of your game. A Toreador prince, for instance, will definitely end up becoming more artistic, more flamboyant, more personal. And they almost feel like somebody you can talk to. However, their rule might be still tyrannical. Kind of has to be, because you got a bunch of blood-hungry parasites that are able to rip the throats out of individuals and of one another. And you need to end up finding some way to keep control over this, because if they don't, your city goes all to hell. And keep in mind, vampire will very much get attached to its city. It very much is territorial. And a prince controls the entire city. He has laid claim, saying, I own this city. This is mine. This is my barbecue. You just eat here. Now, in order to maintain that versus the other elders that could be showing up and neonates and sell out the likelihood of them all, he needs to make sure that the city is set to support his aims and his beliefs. So, a prince with the final say of who comes in, who goes out, very much changes. A Toreador will end up making the city more artful, most definitely, but then it'll also become more decadent. You know, you're going to find a lot more strip clubs. You're going to find a lot more art galleries. You're going to find that money is going to culture as opposed to infrastructure. Just a little bit, just enough to change that kind of city. So you're going to end up finding that the city has certain reflections on the prince. A gangrel, on the other hand, might be a case of restricting herds, for instance. Does not want their city to be weak and lazy. So he ends up saying, you need permission to have a herd. You have to prove you are a capable predator without it. Pushing a gangrel idea on those clans who are not. How much would it suck to be a Ventru in that particular grouping, huh? What else could there be? Tremere. Tremere are definitely powerful, though they typically end up making a difficult time of maintaining the princedom, mostly because it garners more attention. Part of the Tremere is trying to show that they are aberrant supporters of the Camarilla without trying to piss off every neck of the woods around that entire city, which is very difficult because everybody's very suspicious of Tremere. Trying to find a Tremere city, very rare. Can be done, though. And it might be a case of there are strange rituals that everyone needs to practice due to the prince's decree in order to give a tip of the hat to Clan Tremere. What no one knows is that this is actually a ritual, city-wide ritual that the prince has been concocting or maintaining. Maybe it's the way that he's managed to keep the werewolves out, stuff like that. Venture, very pragmatic, very focused on development. He will focus in on his city as a growth. The city will build. Whereas a Malkavian, who knows what goes on in his mind? You never know what he's going to do, especially if, well, much like Prince Abraham Wolf, paranoid. So everybody else is paranoid. Fleshes it out to end up making it so that he feels safe because nobody trusts anybody. And if no one could trust anybody, conspiracy becomes very, very difficult, a method of control. Nosferatu Prince. A Nosferatu Prince, you say? Very pragmatic, actually, if you think about it. A Nosferatu Prince is one who's well informed beyond most other princes. And he doesn't need to be in direct control of anything. He just needs to make sure that everybody fears him. After all, what is more fearful than a Nosferatu in the Camarilla city? They are monsters outwardly. To act a little monstrous is just to play closer to their nature. So maybe it's a case of nobody wants to poke the bear. So when he says something's going to be done, no one wants to argue it. You'll find cities like that typically have a lot of infestations that no one's controlling. Somebody tries to end up doing a pest control business, and maybe they just struggle to get support for whatever reason. After all, a lot of mice and rats in the walls makes it very easy for a Nosferatu-run city to hold its place. Oh yeah. Didn't think of that one, did you? What clan eventually ends up controlling what will typically end up telling you what kind of city it's going to be. Let's not forget Bruja. Oh, the Bruja. Bruja City. Try and imagine that one. That one's a strong arm city. That city is all about the tough guys, the kinds of guys who will try and end up waxing a certain degree of personal philosophy. Maybe it will end up eventually building up some degree of culture, but it'll definitely be a warrior culture. You can definitely expect gangs getting more support than the police in a Bruja hit run country. So, lock him in as Prince. Watch him show on how you can go ahead and build those interests. But so long as those interests are building me up as well, they're fine. They don't, on the other hand, well, my boys just might get the wrong address and burn that establishment to the ground. Take out the owners, drag them by the neck with a bike chain for about 5 blocks, make an example of them. Well, suddenly now you're missing that venture, Prince, aren't you? The Prince dictates the flavor of the city. So he is the number one individual you want to flesh out as an NPC. A prince can be of any clan, so long as loyal to the Camarilla, because we are building a Camarilla city for this discussion. So what do you need to do? How do you build it up? The personality and skill set and interests of your prince will dictate how he has become prince. You end up having a lot of infrastructure in a city, a lot of little pockets where the right word will end up bringing about large amounts of change down the years. The prince makes himself integral to those moments. And because he's so integral, nobody wants to take him down. Because right now, while we may have difficulties gaining embracing rights, we currently control the docks, and the support of the prince stops the Bruja from rolling into our Nos turf, where we can end up controlling the shipping. If we lose the prince, we may lose that opportunity. Meanwhile, the Bruja are thinking the same thing about the Nos, thinking that the Nos might expand if that happens. So they have at least a little bit of support by the prince. A prince stays prince, however, not by just always giving favors. You don't want to give away homeworld. So, how does a prince maintain this? Well, he ends up looking for a reason to take, a socially acceptable reason for him to punish this individual, this screw up, this individual who ended up costing them all something, right? Maybe an illegal embrace. The city can't support many others, so yeah, I'll put the child to death, and I'll put the sire to death as well. Final death means that individual just lost a lot of holdings, and as prince, it's on my duty to stop the squabbling for the scraps. So I will take those scraps as it is, which might be a little bit more than scraps, and I will choose to delegate them to those I know who uphold the rightful princedom. In which case, being in good favor with the prince suddenly became a lot better. Because if you're a neonate who happened to end up doing some work and got some word around and shown yourself to be reliable, That individual who just sired illegally and just bit it, well, a portion of his power might be going to you if you've managed to get in a good place. So, consider what kind of city, what kind of individual is running that city, and how they maintain control, and what do they do to maintain that control. He wants stability more than anything. Not an anarch state, not something that shifts every 5 years. He wants everything calm, everything in its place, everything moving slow enough that he can stay ahead of the curve, which is a really difficult thing when you consider what the other kindred are doing.